2014. This is the Hermetic Hour. I'm your host, Bo Kronian, and tonight we present a discussion on the 20th path of the Tree of Life. This is the path that leads from Tiphereth to Hesed, and is aptly attributed to the astrological sign Virgo, the Hebrew letter Yod, and the tarot trump, the Hermit. Again, our texts will be Gareth Knight's Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism and John Michael Greer's Paths of Wisdom, and also Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine. This particular path is concerned with the issues of personality and individuality in relation to the spiritual ideal of dissolving the ego. In this regard, Hesed represents the Garden of Eden, and the hermit travels the lonely road to recover his or her virgin state of selfless innocence. The alternative to this, according to Gareth Knight, is a return to Lemurian black magic, an option which we will also examine for its symbolic significance. So, if you want to journey beyond the sun, then join us and we will tread the 20th path. Now, this, of course, is in our system. In our system, this is a boat working, and that means that we would get in Kusor's boat, and we get in Kusor's boat, and then we would fly up to Tiphereth, and then we would disembark at Tiphereth, and then we would walk the path over to Hesed. That way we don't have to, we don't have to skip over paths. We have a way of getting there. Now, the 20th path, if you recall, we already approached Hesed coming up from Bethsat, and so you're aware that we prefer to make the holy city of Hesed. You have several choices in what you can use for a holy city there. The choice that we usually make is Atlantis, but that's just not. You could also have, if you were more Christian, you could have New Jerusalem. You could have Hesed could be the Petalmund, city of Petalmund in the Parzival. You could have, if you're really dogmatic Christian, you could have it the Mount of Abiagnus. You could do that. Some sort of ideal paradise or ideal holy city. If you were a Buddhist, of course, Shambhala would be good to put in Hesed. And before we get into this path between Tiphereth and Hesed, it's a good idea to understand what each of these spheres represents, so you can understand what the purpose of the path from Tiphereth to Hesed is. And so, Hesed, coming down from the emanations from Kether and Bina, the Chokmah and Bina, and on to Hesed, is the first manifestation in what we call the Zera dimension, the formative dimension, is that first manifestation, and their evolutionary pattern, which of course we are. This would mean that Hesed would be the ideal. The Garden of Eden is if you're going to be a fundamental biblical orientation, the Garden of Eden is very good in this respect, in evolutionary respect. In that respect, Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights triptych would certainly fit. and that's a good one would be a good one to use. So the idea here being that this is this ideal, virtually perfect state for the innocent human being, the template, as it were. Either that to be achieved by working your way up, or that to be originating in the formative world on the way down. And Tippereth, down in the middle, and somewhat below said, obviously, Tippereth is the sphere of transformation, the sphere of beauty, transformation, and spiritual enlightenment, hopefully, and sphere of sacrifice. And now we have to look at these spheres both in the manner of descent and in the manner of climbing back up. We do both in our continuing meditations in magic and up through the grades of the magical initiation systems. And we have in the occult system, the magician's system, the idea of the lightning flash going down through the spheres to the bottom, and then the path of the snake going back up, touching each of the paths. Now, I want to make something very clear about that right now that will be important later as we get into this, that the path of the snake is, in a sense, related to the snake in the Garden of Eden. And, of course, that snake is, as you recall, that was the great tempter and whatever, and he was going to disabuse Adam and Eve of their innocence, which he did. So, in the strange aspect of this is the serpent of wisdom. That's what it's called, as it winds its way up the tree. We acquire all this wisdom as we go up, this knowledge and wisdom, and then we are, if the biblical analogy is to be followed, we're supposed to lose it. And you recall I discussed the symbolism of the arch fool at the bottom of the tree and the pure fool at the top of the tree, returning to childlike innocence after enlightenment and acquiring all this wisdom and all this experience in order to return to childlike innocence. Well, that's a paradox, and by the time we get done with this evening, we're going to unwind that paradox, and I hope we're going to free some of you from some of the misconceptions you've had about the right-hand path and the left-hand path and the black magic and all the rest of these misconceptions you have about magic. I'm trying to resolve them, because I think the 20th path, the path of the hermit on the way from Tippereth to Hesed, is the place to do that. I think it really is the place to do that. Now let's back up a little bit here and say I'm going to go to John Michael Greer's Paths of Wisdom here for the basic correspondences to the path. Now, the letter of the path that's the fist or the hand. Yod is a little. It looks like a little flame, it's the smallest of the Hebrew letters. And it's like a little flame or a little apostrophe or something or other. It has, and little fiery yods are used in quite a bit in tarot symbolism. And yod is the letter. The name of God is Adonai. The astrological correspondence is Virgo, the Virgin. And the tarot trump is the Hermit. The esoteric title is Magus of the Voice of Light, Prophet of the Gods. That's very apt. And the path text, and this is from the Zohar, The 20th path is the intelligence of will, and is so called because it is the means of preparation of all and each created being. And by this intelligence, the existence of the primordial wisdom becomes known. Maybe from a later version of the Siverian Zera as well as the Zohar. Now, the mythological principle is the wilderness journey. The experiences of the path, according to what John has here, is solitude, journeying through deserts and wild places, visions of the creation of the world, temptation by hostile or demonic entities. Entities on the path are birds and tempting spirits. The magical image is an arch of yellowish green bearing the letter Yod in brilliant white on its keystone. The door in the arch bears the image of the tarot trump. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of these correspondences as they relate to the path. Yod, and by the way, the Phoenician letter Yod looks something like a German version of the letter Z. But regardless of that, the Phoenician, the meaning of the Phoenician letter is exactly the same as the meaning of the Hebrew letter, and the value is the same. And that's both Davies and Myriad both agree on that. And the entire, it's interesting in the Hebrew alphabet, which we use for reference. Well, we primarily use Phoenician, but the Hebrew alphabet, which we use for reference, the Hebrew alphabet, the entire alphabet can be constructed out of the letter Yod. You can turn it, you can stretch it, you can do it, but that particular stroke with the pen or the brush that you use to make a Yod, you can create the whole Hebrew alphabet out of it. It represents this, by the way, the number equivalent is 10, and you remember the Tetragrammaton in Hebrew Kabbalah is Yod He Waw, which is 10-5-6-5. That stands to 26, by the way. And Yod is the 10th letter, and it is held to symbolize the 10 spheres. It's also a seed from which trees are said to grow. Now, a little note down here that says, to quote this particular paragraph from John Greer's book, the second place where the letter shows up in Kabbalistic tradition is at once more familiar and more problematical. Yod is the first letter of the Tetragrammaton, the primary creative name YHVH, and in the context of this name, Yod is the first spark of energy that gets the whole process of creation underway and corresponds to the element of fire, the Father, and similar concepts. And as we will see shortly, the letter Yod's own symbolism differs sharply. In a number of places, in fact, Yod's role on its own terms and its role in the Tetragrammaton are exact opposites. This divergence is no accident, but rather a deliberate paradox. It can be resolved by considering the Tetragrammaton in the context of other names of God used in the Kabbalah. The Tetragrammaton may be the most important of the divine names in practical terms, that's for the Jewish Kabbalah, but it's neither the first in the creative process nor the highest on the tree of life. The name AHIH, about which very little has been said so far, holds both these honors. Now, I quoted that for a very specific reason. You'll recall back when we did the two-part lecture on the great I Am. Ahea, that's the great I Am. That's I am that which I am. Supposedly, that's what when Moses asked God what he should be called. But he had, well, how am I going to? Who shall I tell the people I have spoken with and whatever? And God said, I am that which I am. All right. Of course, you can interpret that as what Popeye said, I am what I am, and it's all that I am. And if that's true, then you better eat spinach because that's a sacred food. But anyway, little joke there. But if this has John is pointing out here in this paragraph, this really is the ultimate secret name of God. And if it had been, if this had been the sacred name of God, then we wouldn't have bothered to we would have adopted it also in our version of the Hermetic Kabbalah. But it wasn't. They didn't. It's one of the names. And by the way, Moses certainly didn't come up with this. This was probably one of the scholars in Ezra's time, under the influence of the Zoroastrians and during the captivity. He probably came up with it. But this is a much more profound tetragrammaton in that sense than YHVH. But, of course, we use the three mother letters and Saturn as tetragrammaton, which is more creative, by the way. Now, to continue with our discussion, however, the 20th path, it's also attributed to the astrological sign Virgo. Now, that's the Virgin, of course, and it's kind of hard to imagine the old hermit as a virgin, but then virgin does not necessarily mean, in this sense, that virgin doesn't necessarily mean it has to be female, and doesn't necessarily mean it has to be young. Believe it or not, I've run into a few 20, 40-year-old virgin men, if you'll... And, some of them want to be. I mean, it's just unfortunate. It's just that they want to be. But really, the virgin aspect of this is not just that you should be celibate, and whatever. That's not the meaning of it. The reason why the path is attributed to Virgo is because the path represents an upward return toward innocence. That's why it's attributed to the Virgin, and also the path is very much attributed to individuality and loneliness. And this individuality on the one hand, and also a disillusion of the ego in another sense, and that is the paradox that we really, really need to deal with. And that is the paradox that almost no magician that I know of has ever been able to fully explain and justify the magical approach and this biblical mystical approach. I say biblical Christian mystical approach. The two just don't seem to go together. And the matter of fact is that if you take each one of these particular ideas or ideals or goals, and you take the magician's goal is to become more than human, to become godlike, to become, well, if you want to use the word powerful, yes, powerful in a positive sense, I hope, but to acquire tremendous power, self-power, power over the self, and not necessarily power over other people. It's self-power. The magician perfects him or herself, and therefore, to the magician, individuality and the self is tremendously important. But on the other hand, we are continually told and cozened into the idea that we have to destroy the self. We have to eliminate the ego. We have to dissolve it. We have to be humble. We have to deface ourselves. We have to be we have to give everything we have to the poor, and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then this isn't just Christianity; it's also Buddhism does this too. And eventually, So by the time we've successfully done all of this, we don't have any individuality left. And so I feel like if I can do one thing tonight in this discussing this path, I can do one thing to straighten this out, so where you can be a magician, still be at least a Rosicrucian. You may not be able to be a thoroughgoing Christian, but you can at least be a Rosicrucian, and you can at least be believe in charity and like we said, comforting the foe and being a good person and seeing good in other people and having as much respect for the God, for the inherent God in everybody as you have in yourself, and still be proud of yourself and want to be successful and be and perfect your individuality. A magician has to do this. And yet at the same time, we are constantly being told, even by, Basil will be in Asphyster at night, and, we have to get rid of the ego. Oh, no. Oh, you get rid of the ego, what do you got? If you got rid of the ego, that'll be the end of the journey right there. That's it. Now, maybe that is, if that's what you want. But if that's what you want, then you shouldn't be a magician. Then you have no business following the path of the serpent of wisdom. You should go and be a mystic, and just go straight up the middle pillar and don't worry about learning things and accomplishing things and doing the work and perfecting your abilities and all of that. You don't worry about any of that. Just meditate and pray and meditate and do good works and give everything you have away to the poor and all of that, and then and be a mystic. That's fine. If you want to do that, I'm more power to you. Go ahead. That's fine if that's what you want. But magicians, the very idea, the way magicians perfect themselves, the knowledge and the wisdom that they very meticulously work on, and all of the things that they do, is not compatible with this. Okay. Now, so you say, okay, I agree with you. I'm a Thelemite. Well, no, I'm not a Thelemite. No, I'm not saying I have anything against Thelemites either. Some of my best friends are Thelemites. That's true. But you don't have to spit in the face of Jesus and continue to rebel against everything to accomplish this. You don't. You can have respect for other people's religions. You can have a tremendous respect for Jesus' wisdom and all of this. You can be a good person. You can do good works and help the poor and all of the rest of the business. But at the same time, strengthen yourself. That's the key. That's the key, and that's what is so difficult to get across. And that, to my way of thinking, is the message of this path, is to find a middle ground between both of these. And I'm going to explain this in another way. And we get around to this business of Lemurian black magic that Basil Wilby's talking about. And Basil's still out, but maybe Basil will be listening to this, or somebody will tell him to. But so we'll be reading a section from The Secret Doctrine about Lemurian black magic in a little bit. Very fascinating section. And by the way, ever since K. Paul Johnson revealed who the Master Muria really was and why they presented his material the way they did, ever since then I've had a much more respect for Helena Blavatsky. There's a lot of really, really good stuff that she did. And she might have been wrong on a few things, like the eighth sphere is not evil. She just didn't want anybody going to the eighth sphere. She wanted to be the only magician in the Theosophical Society. That's why she didn't want you to go into the eighth sphere. But other than that, and a few other things. Blavatsky, oh boy, what a genius. Anyway, what I wanted to try to get at here is this razor's edge that we walk between so-called good and evil, so-called light and darkness, ego and non-ego, self versus abject absorption into the Godhead, all of that. The key to that is this, and this I think we can bear out with the quote from Blavatsky, which we'll get to, and everything else. What this all amounts to, evolution. Evolution on a grand scale, macrocosmic and microcosmic evolution. Evolution in a number of different scales. And what happens is, and this is spiritual evolution I'm talking about, and what happens is that the spirit comes down, the pure spirit, like the sparks from the great Father God, if you're into Gnosticism. The spirit comes down and it begins to acquire matter, and it begins to infuse itself in matter, and becomes more and more locked into matter and the responses of matter, and of course the pleasures of matter. This is why in the Kabbalah we call Malkuth the kingdom. It's where things are done. Yeah, it's according to pure Kabbalistic doctrine, Malkuth is a very important place. Now, Christian mystics and Gnostics and they don't think it is. They think, this world's horrible. This was, oh gosh, we can't wait to get to heaven, and all that. But that's not Kabbalistic, and it's certainly not Hermetic. Now, in the biblical term, and this somewhat relates to the Gnostic philosophy, the more the spirit gets into matter, the worse and the more awful and the more miserable things get. And there is actually, this is kind of a big lie in a way, at least it is from the perspective of a person who enjoys life. If you are a person who enjoys life, and you think that this world is, in spite of some of the pollution we've created and one thing or another, this world's a pretty darn nice place, and you can't really imagine another planet that's actually prettier than or nicer than some of the very nice places on this planet, then matter's not evil. Matter's not evil. And this is why Hermetic philosophy differs in this respect from biblical philosophy. In Hermetic philosophy, the fall of humankind is represented as man's becoming enamored of his reflection in the mirror of matter. He falls in love with his reflection in the mirror of matter. In other words, he wants to be a material being so he can do, so he can feel, so he can accomplish. All right? Now, if you take that concept and you apply it to the legend of the fallen angels, it reads somewhat differently. It reads the same, but it reads differently in its intent. Fallen angels, you remember our angels in the Book of Enoch, the Samyaza and the 200 that came down on the top of Mount Hermon, and by the way, that's in Phoenicia, that's in Lebanon, that's not in Israel. And Enoch was Phoenician, not Israelite. And these fallen angels, they wanted to enjoy becoming physical. They wanted to do. They wanted to accomplish. They wanted to have the pleasure and the satisfaction of being physical beings. That's what's meant by the biblical in the Book of Enoch, and it's also in the Bible, about how they lusted after the daughters of men. Now, they didn't lust after the daughters of men. They lusted after lust. They wanted to enjoy. They wanted to experience. They wanted to live. Yeah. Well, that's bad, isn't it? Well, no, it isn't. But, however, here's the catch. the catch is that if you reach a certain point where you have devolved down to, if you want to use that term, devolving, which we'll use because it fits. If you devolve down to the point where you are now inhabiting a physical body and you're accomplishing things, you're doing things, and all that kind of stuff, then stop and don't start devolving. Don't continue to devolve. There's a certain point at which you've got to stop. You got to say, okay, I've devolved enough. Now I'm going to enjoy and accomplish, and I want to start evolving back. I'm not going to keep devolving, because if I keep devolving, I'm going to become completely enamored with the pleasures of the flesh, and I'm going to have cirrhosis of the liver, and I'm going to have venereal disease, and I'm going to wallow around and weigh 300 pounds and die of a heart attack before I'm 45 years old. You don't want to keep devolving. Not only that, if I keep devolving, I'm going to lose my sense of honor. I'm going to lose my sense of dignity. I'm going to lose my spiritual qualities if I continue to. The more gross I get, the worse it's going to be. That, by the way, and that is the whole reason for biblical morality when you get right down to it. But they cover it up in all this. Well, God says don't do that. Well, God doesn't say don't do that. It's just the natural thing. If you keep devolving, this is what's going to happen. So, eat a ham sandwich, but for heaven's sake, make sure the pig is sanitary. It's just, you don't want to continue to devolve. What you want to do is, you as you're born as a human being, you want to try to move back toward the spirit, because that's the healthier way. It's going to take you, depending upon where you are on the cycle of rebirth, it's going to take you many, many incarnations to evolve all the way up to where you're ready to become a spiritual being again, just a spiritual being. But I don't think, unless you're really miserable, unless this world is really a horrible place for you, I don't think that it is necessarily your duty to try to dissolve your ego and your self and to take your great I am and just throw it out there and say, well, my great I am doesn't really matter. I'm just going to be everybody else's great I am too, and try to just become a sparkly, or whatever. Sparkly, I meant a great big ball of sparklies. You don't have to do that. Once you understand the process of evolution and devolution, then you can play the great game. You play the game. You know that your God's inside you, and you know that your other human beings have God inside them too, and it's a natural thing for human beings to work together and to respect each other and to be kind and compassionate. This should be natural. And if it's not, you should strive to spiritualize yourself to the point where you have these good qualities and you have these spiritual attributes. Certainly, if you don't have them, then work on yourself until you do, and keep going. But you don't have to give up your personal self. You perfect it, and you move and you revere God, certainly, and you're charitable. Now, one thing you have to understand that you cannot help other people by completely impoverishing yourself. If you really want to help other people, then help yourself first. Then become somebody that's capable of helping other people. Now, I'm not trying to sound like I'm not trying to create an Ayn Rand type philosophy here, because I think Ayn Rand's way too selfish, and I think that but then again, on the other hand, look at would we actually have civilization and culture, and would we have patrons of the arts, would we have fine art, and would we have beautiful music, and all of these various things, beautiful things that we have, and these inspiring things, would we have these were it not for successful people who have made these things possible? What if these people just said, "Oh, I don't want to be successful. That's not Christian. That's selfish. That's awful." What a miserable world we would have. And as it said in the Golden Dawn, one of the Golden Dawn initiations, I think it's the Neophyte, that unrestricted mercy allows evil to exist in the world. It encourages evil. I'm going to put this in a political vein right now, and I'm sure that this is going to disturb some people, but I'm going to say this flat out: America is the greatest country with the most beautiful and the most spiritual political economic system that has ever been seen on the face of this earth, and if we lower our standard of living and give up our power and give up our standards of excellence and give up our influence in the world, it's not going to help the third world at all. This idea that we have to share everything equally, that somebody in God knows off in some third world country, if there's one starving child, then we have to impoverish and disempower the Americans, because in order to make everybody equal, it's not going to help these people at all. The stronger and the more prosperous America is, the better it is for all of the people in the world. How many of us today can't see that? So what I am saying here is we have to realize that there is just as much bad and just as much evil in this business of, give everything to the poor, and then we can't have poverty. Everybody has to be happy, and we have to. This literally creates more human misery, and so forget, please. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't have this Christian martyr kind of view, but don't be a magician. And this is not the way of a magician. But you certainly can have, and I guess a magician should be like a knight, like a medieval knight. Like we like to think a medieval knight was, the way they romanticized themselves, or maybe not the way they were, but the way we romanticize medieval knights. And medieval knighthood was a direct mixture of pagan honor and Christian charity, those two, because there's very little honor in pure Christianity. And there wasn't all that much charity in pure pagan honor. So you put the two together, and then you have the way. And that is the way of the magician. That's the way of the magician. Charity is very good, but it's, as Nietzsche said, noblesse oblige. You give to the poor, and you help because you want to, and you can, and you're able to. No one should force you to. And if anyone forces you to, that person is evil. If they forced charity is an evil thing, because it's usually used for evil purposes. When I say evil, I mean taking advantage of other people. That's what I define as evil. Other people define evil other ways. But when you take unfair advantage of other people, that's my definition of evil. Now, I'm going to read this chapter. Not a chapter, but this section out of Elena Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, because you got this idea of this Lemurian black magic that Basil's talking about. Well, this is a couple 1,000-page book here. Oh, boy. Yeah, The Secret Doctrine. This is good stuff. Thus, the first Atlantean races born on the Lemurian continent separated from their earliest tribes into the righteous and the unrighteous, into those who worshipped the one unseen spirit of nature, the ray of which man feels within himself, or the pantheists, and those who offered fanatical worship to the spirits of the earth, the dark cosmic anthropomorphic powers with whom they made alliance. These were the earliest Gabodium, the mighty men of renown in the Bible, in Genesis, who became the fifth race of the Kabirum, the Kabiri, with the Egyptians and the Phoenicians, Titans with the Greeks, the Rakashis, and the Dayatyas of the Indian races. And such was the secret and mysterious origin of all the subsequent and modern religions, especially of the worship of the later Hebrews for their tribal god. At the same time, this sexual religion was closely allied to, based upon, and blended, so to say, with astronomical phenomenon. And the Lemurians gravitated toward the North Pole, or the heaven of their progenitors, the Hyperboreans, and the Atlanteans toward the Southern Pole, the pit cosmically and terrestrially, whence breathed the hot passions blown into hurricanes by the cosmic elementals whose abode it is. The two poles were denominated by the ancients as dragons and serpents, hence good and bad dragons and serpents, and also the names given to the sons of God, the sons of spirit and matter, the good and bad magicians. This is the origin of this dual and triple nature in man. The legend of the fallen angels and its esoteric signification contains the key to the manifold contradictions of human character. It points to the secret of man's self-consciousness. It is the angle iron on which hinges the entire life cycle, the history of his evolution and his growth. Well, I think in this case, we can say that Madame Blavatsky has spoken a profound truth, that we are the fallen angels, as she says. We are. And if we continue to devolve, we will be trapped in the mountains in the same way as it is described in the book of Enoch that Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael actually chained the fallen angels into the caverns and under the mountains of the earth. What's meant by that is that they continued to devolve and didn't really need Raphael and Michael and Oriel to do the chaining. They chained themselves. They continued to devolve. That's what's meant by that. And that's what we don't want to do. We want to say, okay, here we are. Let's start evolving toward the light, but let's not go quite so fast. Let's take it easy and let's enjoy ourselves while we're going. Let's improve ourselves using the Latin phrase festina lente, make haste slowly. Because if we go the other way, it's going to get worse and worse. And if we go toward the light, it's going to get better, and we're going to stay. We're going to maintain our health and our beauty and our our spiritual happiness and our ability to take care of our families and our people and whatever. We're going to be good people. We're going to get more and more godlike. But let us not seek so ardently to dissolve the very self-power it takes to do this. And this is not what the path of the magician is all about. So if you understand this razor's edge, one good way of looking at it is, if those of us who are Masons, is the floor of a Masonic lodge is black and white squares. It's like a chessboard. The floor is these black and white squares. And the idea of this is to move through, to cross these black and white squares, and end the game standing on a white square. That's what's meant by this. This is what is also meant by the what we continually say, that you can't have light without darkness, and you can't have darkness without light. The two work together. And the whole yin-yang idea is darkness and light. It's a combination of the two. And so, quite frankly, as you said, that the message, I believe, of the 20th path is move toward the light, perfect the spiritual aspect within yourself, uncover it more and more, become more and more closer to it, but at the same time, don't destroy yourself. Perfect yourself. Perfecting yourself is a great deal more to be desired and more to be it is more positive in all ways than just dissolving, giving up, just saying, oh no, I just want to. I'm not gonna do anything anymore. I'm just going to be good and just give up and merge with the Godhead and give everything I have to the poor and all of that. That's, well, if you want to do that, that's fine. Do it. I'm not saying it's not what you should do, but not if you're going to be a magician. If you're going to be a magician, that find something else. I mean, find another tree to climb, because our tree is for people who want to be more than human. And of course, obviously, if you're going to be more than human, you're going to be more than one human. You have to be able to identify with, and you have to be able to empathize with and identify with other human beings. You got to become less a prisoner of your own particular bad habits and passions and selfishness. Yes, absolutely. You need to spiritualize yourself, but not at the point of losing your power, and not at the point of losing your individuality. Because if you do that, you lost the game, at least the magical game. And you don't have to be, as I say, you don't have to consider yourself on the dark side or anything like that. The dark side, that you've automatically lost the game, as far as I'm concerned. If you go on the dark side, you lost the game, because what you're doing is you're putting yourself, you're purposely devolving. And what I'm trying to get across is that evolution, devolution. Evolution, devolution. Don't look at it from a moral point of view. Don't look at it from a Christian point of view. Don't just look at it from the point of view of spirit going down and into matter at a certain point. At a certain point, the human being is not a contradiction. The human being is not a contradiction. The human being is a combination of matter and spirit. And the human being should always try to be a little more spiritual than material. You should always be moving a little more spiritually, but don't ever forget that you are a human being, and you are in the kingdom. And the kingdom, if you want to realize your potential as a human being, you need to find your true will and do it. Be successful. Be a contributing member to society. Be all you can be.
as they say in the Army. And I hope that this I hope this can in some way resolve this problem that we have. I know that this is a problem that has been. This is the downside of Christianity that I think the Hermetic philosophy overcomes. And this is the reason why I'm a Rosicrucian. I don't like to call myself a Christian. I'd rather call myself a Rosicrucian. Anyway, this is
enough to chew on for tonight, I think. And remember that has said is whatever paradise model you want, you like, and but I wouldn't fill it up with 16-year-old girls with cell phones like our Muslim brothers. I'd have a paradise that's a little more meaningful, and in the Hesed to seek for, or to think you have devolved from and are evolving back toward. So next week, onward up the tree, and the following week after that, I think we'll have Joe Carson talking about the Eleusinian mysteries. And meanwhile, good magic, and we'll see you next week.